The ticking clock on the wall was the only sound echoing in the quiet, sterile room. Wine sat on the edge of the patient's bench in the private clinic, her fingers nervously getting in her lap. The white fluorescent lights above did nothing to ease the growing heaviness in her chest, both literally and emotionally. She pressed a tissue gently on her lips as she coughed again, the familiar sting returning to her throat, but this time with a metallic taste. Her breathing had grown shallow over the past few weeks, and now it felt like each inhale came with a weight pressing against her lungs. The door creaked open, and Dr. Han, a middle-aged oncologist with soft eyes but a serious face, stepped in, holding a clipboard. He didn't speak right away. He sat across from her, adjusting his glasses before clearing his throat gently. Miss Vine, I have gone through your test results thoroughly. She held her breath, afraid of what he was about to say. You have been experiencing chronic shortness of breath, fatigue, persistent coughing, and you mentioned traces of blood lately as well. Mr. Hunt tilted his head slightly, concern etched in his features. She gave a silent nod, clutching the tissue tighter. Your CT scans show an abnormal mass in your left lung. It's malignant. I'm afraid it's lung cancer, stage 2. Time froze. The word blurred for a moment. She blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. A cold shiver passed through her body as her heart sagged. She didn't even know when the first tear slipped down her cheek. It just did. Cancer. Her voice was barely audible, choked, and trembling. Mr. Hunt softened his tone, leaning slightly forward. It's not too late. Stage 2 is serious, but it's treatable. With the right approach, especially if you begin treatment immediately, there's a good chance of recovery. Treatment? What kind? You'll need a combination of chemotherapy and targeted drug therapy, but to the completely honest, the advanced facilities required for this kind of care are not available here. I highly recommend going abroad, somewhere with comprehensive cancer treatment centers. South Korea or Germany would be ideal. I can provide referrals and assist with the paperwork. She nodded slowly, her mind spinning, her lips parted to respond, but a deep cough cut her off again. More forceful than before, she instinctively turned away and covered her mouth with the tissue. This time, when she pulled it away, the red stain was undeniable. Mr. Han's eyes flickered to the tissue, his brows furrowing. Are you coughing up blood often now? Wine hesitated for a moment before giving a silent nod, her gaze falling to the floor. That confirms what I suspected. The cancer has already begun to affect the bronchial lining. That's why you have been feeling like your chest is tightening. It's not just fatigue, it's obstruction. The earlier we intervene, the better. He scribbled some prescriptions on a pad and told the sheet carefully before handing it to her. It's a set of medicines to help manage the symptoms temporarily, reduce inflammation, ease the coughing, but this isn't a cure wine, it's a bandage. You need full treatment. You blinked away tears, trying her best to hold herself together. Her voice was faint but composed. Thank you, doctor. I'll arrange everything. I'll do it. Mr. Han gave a warm note, offering a small smile. You're wrong, Wine. You have every reason to fight this. Just don't delay. I'll have my assistant get in touch with you regarding the documents and contacts abroad. She stood slowly, clutching the paper in her trembling fingers. Her legs felt weak, like they no longer belonged to her. The room silently felt colder than it had when she first walked in. Thank you, really. Without another word, she stepped out of the clinic, the heavy door clinking shut behind her. The city outside was alive, cars moving, people laughing, the sun shining down. But to her, everything felt distant, like she was watching the world through glass. One word echoed endlessly in her ears: cancer. The ride back home was silent, but Wine's thoughts were anything but still. Her fingers trembled lightly on the steering wheel as she drove past the familiar turns of the city. The doctor's word echoed endlessly in her head, each sentence like a stamp burned into her memory. Stage 2, malignant, bleeding, go verses. She blinked the tears back at her mind, not to fall apart again. But just as she took a slow turn near the park, her eyes caught on a scene playing out on the footpath. A couple stood there under the golden rays of the late afternoon sun. The girl seemed to have twisted her ankle, and her partner, dressed in a simple white shirt and black jeans, was crouching down on one knee. His hands carefully cupped her foot as he examined it, his brows creased in pure tension. Does it hurt here? Just tell me, love. I'm right here. His voice was too soft for her to hear, but the tenderness in his expression, the way his hands hovered just enough to comfort without hurting, that spoke louder than anything. The girl laughed softly through the pain, brushing his cheek, and he kissed her hand in return like she was the most fragile thing in the world. Once her heart clenched, unconsciously her mind slipped away from the scene and revived it. She saw herself in that girl's place, delicate, fragile, hurt, and kneeling in front of her instead of the random guy was Jungkook. Dressed sharply, his style loosened slightly, eyes intense and voice slow but laced with worry. Where does it hurt, Wine? You should have called me. Don't move. I have got you. The image vanished as quickly as it appeared. Wine quickly looked away, her jaw tightening as she swallowed down the wave of emotions bubbling in her chest. No, stop it. He's not like that. Don't start imagining things that are not real. She took the thoughts off as she turned into their driveway. The house was quiet when she entered. Of course it was. Jungkook had already left for the office earlier that morning. She remembered his last words before stepping out, dressed in his usual tailored suit, his Rolex watch, the morning light. We need to be at the restaurant by 6. Be ready by then. He didn't say much else. He really did. Chungo was always calm, composed, polite, but distant. Not cold in a cruel way, just hard to reach. Now it was 4:12 p.m. She had already 2 hours. Went into the bedroom and placed her bag on the dresser, pulling out the doctor's prescription, staring at it as if it would disappear if she blinked hard enough. The words danced before her eyes: chemotherapy, abroad, malignant. She folded the paper quickly and tucked it inside her drawer, as if hiding it would push reality away. By 5:20, she was sitting at her vanity, curling her hair loosely and brushing soft strokes of foundation onto her skin. But as soon as she picked up her eyeliner, her hand paused. A single tear slid down on her cheek, then another. How will I tell him that? Her reflection blurred as her eyes filled again. Will he leave me after this? I can tell him. He will walk away. He didn't sign up for this. He never loved me like that. She clenched her jaw and wiped her tears with the back of her hand, forcing herself to apply her makeup as if nothing had happened. She pressed powder under her eyes, trying to cover the swelling. But pain like this couldn't be hidden completely. Just then, the sound of a sharp car horn broke through the silence. She flinched, grabbing her clutch and quickly stepping outside. Jungkook's black Mercedes was parked at the front gate. He sat inside with one hand resting on the wheel, his phone in the other. Eyes fixed ahead, the evening sunlight cast shadows across his sculpted features, his jawline sharp, his expression unreadable. She opened the passenger door and stepped inside silently. He glanced at her briefly. You okay? His voice was even, but there was a subtle shift in his eyes. A flicker of concern. He could always tell when something was wrong, even if she didn't say it out loud. Wine gave a stiff note, avoiding his gaze. I'm fine, but he didn't bite. His fingers tapped softly against the steering wheel as he pulled the car into motion, but his gaze kept drifting toward her, watching her out of the corner of his eye. The drive to the venue was quiet, filled only with the low hum of the engine and the occasional buzz of city life. Soon they reached a luxurious fine dining restaurant located near the riverfront. Glass walled, softly lit, and packed with guests in formal attire. The wallet open wine store and Chubuk stepped around the car, placing a gentle hand on the small of her back as they entered. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and grand. Chandeliers hung above a long marble dining table where members of the June family were already seated. Chatting and laughing as soon as Wine stepped in, a familiar figure stood and rushed to her. Mrs. June, Chunguk's mother, embraced her tightly with warmth. Wine, dear, you look so beautiful today. Wine returned the hug, forcing a soft smile. Thank you, Amma, you look lovely too. The seats were filling up. Jungkook's sister, her husband, his father at the head of the table. It was all very formal but familiar. She followed him toward their seats, but as she sat beside Jungkook, her gaze landed on a girl standing nearby the far side of the table, tall, slender, dressed in an elegant off-shoulder gown, her long brown hair tucked behind her ear. She smiled politely and took her seat beside Jungkook's sister. Oh, Jiwoo, I'm so glad you made it. Wine's heart still for a second. The name sent a chill down her spine. Jiwoo, Jungkook's ex, his first love. Her smile faltered, her throat suddenly felt dry. Who invited her? The thought whispered through her mind like a gust of cold air. She kept her expression neutral, but her hand subconsciously clenched under the table. The grand dining hall echoed with polite laughter and soft clinks of cutlery. Wine glasses sparkled under the chandelier light, and waiters glided across the floor with silver trays. One sat quietly beside Jungkook, her gaze lowered, her breathing already a little strained, but she tried her best to blend in, to smile when needed, to seem fine. But the peace didn't last long. Jiwoo, seated directly across from Jungkook, leaned in a little too comfortably, her elbow resting on the table, her voice dipped in sweetness that was anything but incense. Jungkook, you still remember how we always used to come to this place on your birthdays? Your favorite dessert still on the menu. Should I order it for you? Her eyes sparkled, lips curved in a smirk that didn't match the gentle tone she used. Wine tried to focus on her plate, but something bitter rose in her chest. Jungkook, as usual, remained composed. He didn't entertain her nostalgia, but his jaw did clench slightly. No, thank you. I don't eat sweets anymore. Wine let out a small cough into her handkerchief, a dry, raspy sound. She reached for the glass of water, but her fingers trembled. Another cough followed, deeper this time. causing hands at the table to briefly turn. Just then, waiters began placing the main course dishes on the long table. Plates of sizzling grilled meats, vibrant salads, and delicately plated appetizers. The scent of spices filled the air. Mrs. Jones looked up and pointed toward the sauce tray near Wine. Wine, can you pass me the garlic sauce, dear? Wine nodded gently, forcing a small smile despite the growing heat in her lungs. She reached for the sauce dish, still holding the white handkerchief in her other hand, but just as she extended her arm to pass it over, another violent cough erupted, causing her wrist to twitch. The glass sauce dish slipped from her grasp. Time slowed. A splash of deep red garlic sauce flew through the air and landed directly onto Jiwoo's ivory silk dress. Jiwoo gasped sharply and pushed her chair back with a screech. Are you serious? This is a designer dress. Wine's eyes widened, her lips trembling as she tried to apologize between cuffs. The entire table had fallen silent. Jiwoo stood up, glaring. You can't even hold a single utensil properly. What's wrong with you? You are doing this on purpose, or not you, pretending to be sick for sympathy in front of his family. Jungkook's chair scraped back suddenly as he stood, his voice low and firm. Enough, Jiwoo. She scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. Oh, come on. Everyone can see she's acting, coughing like she's staying when nothing is even wrong. But before she could say another word, Jungkook stepped in between her and whined protectively, his eyes sharp and voice cold as steel. One more word against my wife, and I'll have you escorted out. Jiwoo froze. Meanwhile, Wine's cuffing Watson, now uncontrollable, violent, shaking her entire frame. Her shoulders hunched, her body trembling. She pressed the handkerchief harder to her mouth. A dark stain of red spread on the white cloth. Jungkook's eyes fell on the blood. His heart dropped. Wine. She tried to stand to reassure him with some weak excuse, but her vision blurred. The light spun, the clinking of plates and murmurs faded into a dull buzz. Her knees buckled beneath her. Jungkook caught her just in time as she collapsed into his arms. Parik replaced his scarf. He lifted her gently, not caring about the shocked stares from his familiar Jiwoo's wide eyes. Cradling her like she was glass, he rushed out, shouting for the wallet. Call the doctor now. Within 20 minutes, they were in the emergency wing of a private hospital. Nurses wheeled wine into the ER while Jungkook walked beside them, refusing to let go of her hand until they were forced to separate him at the doors. He stood there, stiff, silent, staring at the wide doors with his fists clenched. His expression unreadable, but beneath that perfect exterior, his heart was pounding with dread. And what felt like an eternity, the door opened. Dr. Han stepped out wearing the same expression he had earlier, that is serious, grave but not surprised. Mr. Jung, Chungkook told immediately. Your wife is stable for now, but I need to speak to you about her condition. What condition? The doctor sighed. Wine was diagnosed earlier today with lung cancer, stage 2, malignant. It's spreading fast. She didn't want to tell you yet. Chunguk's word tilted. He took a step back. His voice was low, like he didn't want to believe it. Cancer, and she kept this to herself. Dr. Han nodded. She's been hiding the symptoms for a while now. She came to see me today alone. She didn't want to worry you, but she is going to need full treatment and fast. Overseas, ideally. Jungkook didn't speak, his jaw tightened, he blinked hard as the weight of it all sank in the coffin. Her shaking hands, her silence in the car, the faint smile at the table, he should have seen it. And then finally, a single tear slipped from his eye, not loud, not dramatic, just quiet devastation. Why didn't you tell me why? And the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor echoed softly in the hospital room, mixing with the faint hum of the air conditioning. The sunlight outside had dimmed into a soft gold, casting long shadows across the sterile floor. One stirred slightly, her eyelashes fluttering against her pale cheeks as her chest rose with a shallow breath. Then her fingers moved. She blinked slowly, her vision adjusting to the wide ceiling above her. Her throat was dry and her head throbbed faintly, but her mind was clear enough to register the stiff line beneath her palms. Wine came a familiar voice. Jungkook, before she could even turn her head, the door burst open and he was there, rushing to her bedside, eyes wide, panic and relief colliding in his expression. Wine, hey, you're awake. She tried to sit up, but he gently pressed her back down by the shoulders, eyes scanning her face like he was afraid she might disappear again. Wine forced a smile, reaching for the oxygen mask still hanging off one ear. I'm okay, Jungkook. It's just some coughing, nothing serious. She gave a light chuckle, though her voice cracked. Her hand trembled slightly as she pulled the blanket close around her waist. But Jungkook didn't smile back, his gaze didn't soften. Instead, his brows furrowed deeply, his jaw tightening. Don't lie to me, please, Vine. Dr. Hunt told me everything. Her breath caught, the smile froze. Her eyes widened. Dr. Hunt. Jungkook gave a short, heavy note. He said you came to him today. He told me about the cancer stage 2 and he told me you have been hiding the symptoms for weeks. Her heart dropped. Everything she had been hiding, everything she thought she could carry alone was now laid bare. Wine looked down at her lap, fingers curling into the blanket. Her lower lip trembled and she blinked back, the stinging in her eyes. I didn't want to worry you. I thought if I told you, you would leave me. A tear slid down her cheek as she choked on the confession. You didn't marry me for this, Jungkook, not to carry someone sick, someone who might. She couldn't even say the word. Jungkook let out a breath, then knelt beside her bed, gently placing a hand over hers. His touch was warm, steady, despite the storm in his eyes. And what if I never found out? What if something happened to you while I was clueless, while I thought you were fine? His voice cracked barely, but it did. That rare moment of vulnerability he never showed. Then what, Wine? You wanted to leave me with that guilt for the rest of my life, huh? He leaned closer, his tone trembling with emotion now. You're afraid I would leave, but did it ever occur to you how I would survive if you left? You didn't trust me enough to carry this with you. She bit her lower lip, tears rolling down faster now. I'm sorry. She sniffled softly, voice breaking. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared. Everything is happening so fast, and I just wanted one day to pretend like I was normal. Jungkook exhaled and reached up to brush away her tears with the back of his fingers. Wine. His voice soft and warm and breaking. When I say I love you, I don't mean just the happy parts. I mean everything. I love you through the pain, through the fear, through the sickness. I didn't marry you for the good days only. I'm walking with you to your last breath if that's what it takes. She looked at him stunned. Her lip quivered again as he pressed her hand to his chest. But I'm so disappointed in you. Wine winced, slightly ashamed. I'm disappointed you didn't lean on me, that you thought I would run. That hurts fine. She nodded, another soft tear escaping. I know, I'm sorry. No more hiding, no more pretending. We'll fight this together. She wiped her nose, then gave a soft, exaggerated sigh, trying to change the mood just a little. But you really yelled at me like in a drama, huh? Jungkook raised a brow, then let out a breathy laugh, shaking his head as he wiped another tear from her cheek. And now you are making jokes. You really are dramatic, Mrs. Jones. Wine smiled through the tears, and in that moment, though the fear had not vanished and the illness was still very real, her heart felt lighter because he was here and he wasn't going anywhere.